Hello.
Hey there.
How are you doing?
Good.
That's
How are
amazing.
you?
I'm really good. I'm happy that you were able to do this. This means a lot to me, and it's going to really help me in my presentation tomorrow.
Okay, cool. Glad to help.
Perfect. I'm pulling up my notes real quick.
All right.
Um, so in this general interview, I'm just going to be asking about what you like, how you produce the sounds you do, kind of the equipment you use and how that affects the sound and how that helps you produce said sounds, just all that good stuff.
Okay.
So let's go over the types of sounds you create. What do you what do you kind of do in that general region?
What do I do? Do you mean like how do I do it or like describing them or
I've seen some of your videos, and I know you do like a slap tonguing, you do which creates like a bass kind of sound. I know you do a hi-hat kind of sound and a
okay.
snare.
Yeah, so it's a mix of percussive sounds. Well, I mean, yeah, they're usually percussive based, but that's either comes from my mouth and my tongue or my embouchure. So, like the slap tonguing is a technique. I mean, that a lot of, especially contemporary classical sax players do. That I mean, I can get really involved here, but
Yeah,
it involves your tongue getting a suction on the reed, pulling it down, releasing it, and it slaps up against the mouthpiece. Do you play saxophone or are you a?
I'm a trumpet player.
Okay.
I'm in a woodwinds method class. We have to do a presentation on either famous soloist or technique. And so I was
Okay.
like, I'll mix the best of both worlds in this.
Okay. Cool. So yeah, so there's slap tonguing. There's different types of slap tonguing I do: open slap tonguing, closed slap tonguing. Yeah, I do these things I call hi-hat clicks, but that's just because it sounds like a hi-hat. I'm kind
Yeah.
of just making a percussive wind sound without really kind of engaging the reed. I'll do these pop sounds where I'm just kind of biting and releasing air. So those are the things with my mouth, kind of the purely percussive sounds without pitches. But then I do things where I have rings on my thumbs that I'm hitting the saxophone. I'll sometimes scrape the side of the sax. I've made some alterations to the sax, like kind of ribbed the edges a little bit. I
Of
put some
course.
guards on the sides to protect it a little.
Yeah.
Um, let's see, and then I'll do kind of some other more traditional extended techniques like multiphonics, which gives this kind of like growling sound, but you're actually hearing multiple pitches. I'll sing and play at the same time. I'll do things I call record scratches, where I'm playing in the altissimo, the really high part of the
Yeah.
sax, and doing this kind of double tonguing thing that makes it go wah 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 wah, kind
Yeah.
of not on a clear pitch. Speaking of that, I do lots of multiple tonguing. I know that's something you do in the brass world a lot,
Yeah.
from double tonguing to actually to a true triple tonguing, which I've never heard of a brass. I actually haven't heard any other musicians do a true triple tongue. Do you double tongue yourself?
I double tongue quite a bit. I'm learning how to triple tongue, more like a
Okay.
taco kind
Yeah.
of
Now,
thing.
when you talk about triple tonguing, people talk about just using those same two syllables,
Yeah.
but in different combinations, right? Like
Yeah.
ta ka ta,
Yeah.
or ta ka. But it's possible, at least on the sax, you can do different types of tonguing. So you can actually get three different syllables. For instance, you can tongue instead of just going like ta, releasing your tongue from the reed, and then ka is, in the back of the throat. You can actually do a type of tonguing where you're flapping your tongue against the reed. You can
Hmm.
do a double tonguing like that. But then you can also combine that with the ka. So you can do like a flap down, ka, flap up, flap down, ka, flap up. So you get this true ta-ka-dle, ta-ka-dle, ta. It'd be like
Oh,
combining doodle tonguing on the trumpet with double tonguing. So like
that's really
the
cool.
doodle, doodle, doodle with the ka, doodle, ka, doodle, ka. I don't know if it would work as well on a brass
Yeah,
instrument, but
that's
there's
fair.
also a fourth way you can get an articulation. And I bet you could do this on the trumpet too. I haven't heard anybody doing this on, once again, any other instrument, even saxophone, but I call it bite tonguing. And it's this like very juvenile way of making an articulation where you can, you just bite down on the reed, or it'd be like with trumpet, just literally closing your lips briefly.
Okay.
Um, and so not using your tongue at all. And so you can do double tonguing by going, you could go bite, you could, so it's biting with your jaw, and then
Yeah.
this is your tongue. Bite ta, bite ta, bite ta,
Yeah.
bite ta. Kind of like going bada 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 bada.
Yeah, that
Once
makes
again, you
sense.
could combine that with the flap tongue. You could find that with the ka. You could do a true quad tongue if you wanted. So, anyways, I love just experimenting with all of those different sounds and techniques.
That's really cool. Um, let's get into the equipment you use and kind of how that affects your sound. Because
Yeah.
I don't know anything about saxophone mouthpieces and materials used.
Yeah.
I saw on your website you use a metal mouthpiece. How does that affect you when you're playing?
Yeah, there are a lot of things that affect the sound of a mouthpiece. I mean, so many of these like tiny little grooves or sidewalls or the angles of things. It's interesting that I don't think the material of the mouthpiece, I don't think actually affects the sound as much as something like the tip opening size or the angle of the baffle. But it does, playing on a metal mouthpiece does add kind of a brightness, a brilliance to it, compared to the hard rubber
Yeah.
mouthpiece that you might more commonly see. Uh, the hard rubber often gives a darker sound that, you know, like if you're a jazz player, that means you kind of often want this kind of more old school smoky sound versus the brighter metal, kind of more cutting, edgy, poppier sound, I guess you could say. A lot of people don't like using the word poppy,
That makes
but
sense. That makes sense.
yeah. So that's the mouthpiece. I play something called the Jody Jazz. It's actually a signature mouthpiece that that Jody Espina designed for me. He
Oh,
calls it, we call it the DV Beatbox,
yeah, I saw that.
because it's kind of unique in that it's a kind of a cross between a more brighter commercial mouthpiece, but with a really small tip opening, which is maybe more similar to a classical player. So it has elements of kind of a more brighter, brighter commercial sound, you could say, and a more traditional classical thing. I don't know. It's a weird mix, but it
Yeah,
works for me.
that's
Uh,
amazing.
and then I play on Leger reeds, which are a synthetic reed.
Yeah,
And I really think synthetic reeds are going to be the kind of the equivalent of like digital photography. I
yeah,
think they are. I think like a Leger read already is, where, you know, in the old days, digital, well, first of all, it didn't exist. You had to use the old school way.
yeah,
And then it was first introduced and it wasn't very good. And there were lots of really bad plastic reeds. But then the technology got better and better. And now they can fine tune it so well that I think they are superior now to most cane reeds because of the inconsistency of plants, you know,
yeah.
compared to just always machine making
The
this
exact
one
same
reed.
thing every time. The consistency is
Yep.
amazing. Yeah.
So that's why I play on that. I play on a P. Moriat tenor sax, and they're actually working. Supposedly, they're supposed to this summer come out with a signature Derek Brown beatbox sax that has all these alterations that I've done to it. But the key thing is that you can play any of this, the vast majority of what I do on any setup.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a plastic reed. You don't have to have a metal mouthpiece to do what I do. It's just, it makes it, I don't know. I'm just more comfortable with that stuff. And
That's
that's a
fair.
big thing. it's important for especially younger musicians to know that it's not the gear that matters that much.
This
It's
is the technique and the practice and refinery.
absolutely. I would
Yeah.
way rather spend time practicing than hunting for some better mouthpiece that's going to make me
Yeah.
a fraction of a percent
It
sound
can
different.
it can help in the long run, but it's better to refine your skills and your
Yep.
technique better than
And
anything.
I think only the absolute pros can, if you have a horn that's not working, of course you got to
Yeah,
get
yeah,
something better or get it fixed. But only the absolute pros are going to be able to tell the difference between this or that thing. Even the horns, I mean, you could play it for the average person. They're not going to tell the difference between a professional horn and a beginning horn. So
yeah, exactly.
that's just my piece of advice there.
Yeah, that's amazing. You said you make alterations to your sax. Is that just little guards to protect the instrument, little patches where you smack it?
Yeah, it's things like that. There's a spot where I added a little bit of like ribbing by like kind of sawing some grooves in to make this kind of guiro sound. That when I scrape my reed against, it's like.
Ooh,
I have I've done some things on my sax. I've added a couple of key joints so that I can like play a little bit more with one hand. That's kind of weird.
that
I've
makes
even been
sense.
I've even been experimenting lately with attaching kalimba tines to it, like thumb piano tines, so I could kind of play a little thumb piano with my right hand thumb. I'm
Huh.
always just experimenting with stuff. I'm always super gluing things on or soldering stuff on to see if
Yeah,
I can get more sound out of just a solo saxophone.
that's
Sometimes,
amazing.
usually it doesn't work, but sometimes I'll find that little tiny little thing that was like, oh, that's fun. That could be a possibility. That could lead to a new
Yeah,
song idea or something.
yeah. And kind of to close, well, first off, I just want to fact check. You got your master's and bachelor's in, oh wait, your master's, I believe, in jazz studies and your bachelor in saxophone and performance, music performance. Is
Yep.
that
Yeah,
correct?
the bachelor's was I got that in '06, and then the
Oh,
master's was 2 years
6.
later in '08.
Okay. And you got those from University of Cincinnati.
That was my master's degree, and then Hope College was my undergrad.
Perfect. And just to kind of close out, um, why do you think this is relevant to teaching new beginners, like sixth graders or something like that?
Why is what relevant?
Teaching beatbox sax, because I think this could be an
Ah.
amazing thing to teach to beginners. You kind of mentioned the beginners, like, hey, this is a possibility.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I'm really close to finishing in like a beginning beatbox sax etude book. Um,
Wow.
because I sell sheet music on my website of my solos, but they're
Yeah,
all pretty advanced because these are ones that I actually perform and have recorded. But then I've had a lot of people say, "Man, what's the easiest song you have? These are pretty hard." Um, and while I have like tutorials and stuff online, I don't really have music that people, because a lot of, and especially a lot of people who are into my stuff are actually classical saxophonists that are into the techniques.
that's
Um,
fair.
and so if they're not as comfortable kind of experimenting on their own, they want to read music. I thought, hey, I should write some kind of really simple and gradually get harder things. So yeah, I think could be important or helpful because I mean the vast majority of I think music education for young people is just about motivation. Can you motivate them to actually want to play? Because if they're excited to play their horn, they're going to want to practice and they'll get better. It almost matters less what they're actually practicing than the fact that they actually are like playing their horn every day, because the vast majority of kids don't do that. And the vast majority of kids don't understand that concept of working on something day after day and just slowly getting better. We're used to video games where you become a pro snowboarder within 15 minutes,
Yeah,
doing backflips. Um, And so if we can have fun things that they like doing, whether that's like, you know, playing Disney songs that they like, or making cool sounds that kind of, you know, where they can kind of mimic music that they're hearing, or playing funky stuff or more pop oriented stuff, you know, I think that's just gonna motivate them more and secretly make them actually get better along the way.
That's amazing. Well, I just want to say thank you for your time. Obviously, this was
Yeah,
kind
you're
of
welcome.
this is a very last minute thing. I was eating lunch. I saw the email and I was like, "Holy crap, this is amazing!"
All right.
I present tomorrow at 10. So
Oh, okay.
thank you so
Cool.
much.
Well, good luck.
Thank you. You have a good day.
All right, you too. See ya.
See ya.